No Time to Diet, and today we have with us Sarah.
Hi.
Hey.
Nice to be here.
It's fun to have you with us, Sarah.
Super excited to have you in the studio with us. Yes, and we've got a change of scene today. We are in our fabulous studio at @SparkLife_UK.
With well done. With our gorgeous artwork by Myro Doodles as well.
At Myro Doodles.
She is. Go follow because she's super.
Yeah.
But you're super and you're here now. Woo! So, as always, what you've come to do today is have a little chat with us, kind of just about your experience, really, of diet culture throughout your life. So, we always start at the beginning, and I know you predicted this question. So, for you, what's your first memory of falling into diet culture?
I have thought about this because I knew you were going to ask, and I was thinking about it. And I was like, well, you know, my mum was always on a diet. Like maybe that's it, or kind of having to go to like school swimming lessons or something like that. Maybe that's it. And I thought, you know what? It's not. It's all of that. It's like this just insidious thing that you like live in, if that makes sense. Like, like it's almost like asking, like, when did you notice air? You know, like it's just there all the time, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think I ever had a moment of being like, oh, there's all this pressure on me. Like I've suddenly realised. I think it was just there all the time.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, like I do remember my mum's literally always been on a diet. There's always, 4 to 6 pounds to lose. I wasn't meant to mention weights, was I? Damn it. There's always a little bit to lose. There's always X amount, small amounts often, but there's always a little bit, or I just need to drop a size to fit in this thing. But I don't remember there being like a ton of pressure about meal times or anything like that at home. And we were really active kids, actually. So I did lots of sport when I was a kid. I did gymnastics, diving, trampolining. So again, I think there probably was a bit of pressure. Like I don't know if you did any of those kinds of sports, but they're quite tight-fitting uniforms for those kinds of sports. So just sort of being aware of like your shape, because there ain't no hiding it.
Yeah.
I suppose.
It's very out there in those clothes.
Yes, indeed.
Or with the lack of clothes.
Yeah.
And even stuff like your body hair's on show and things.
Yeah.
Like there's just more of your body available. Not even necessarily any like lumps and bumps. Just I'm literally wearing like one thing between me and being naked. So I think that's really kind of where it started. I think I just was born into it.
Yeah.
I wonder if you're asking really like when's my first diet?
When was your first diet? Yeah.
I know it sounds odd. I think I kind of started late on that. I've met a lot of people say, "Oh, I was on my first diet at 13 or whatever." Like, it didn't get to me until like my 20s.
That's good.
So, a friend of mine had started Slimming World, and praising it to high heaven. Oh, isn't it wonderful? And I was like, okay, like I didn't necessarily kind of think much of it, but she was sort of saying it was great. And I'd gone into H&M to look for like a coat. I needed like a new winter coat, and I was trying them on, and I put on a particular size. And you know that thing, I suppose. You know when you go clothes shopping, like in an actual shop, and you always get like really hot and flustered?
Yeah.
So I was hot and flustered, and I'd gone in, and I was trying to get these coats on. And I'm the kind of person who just like, I don't bother going to a changing room, I just do it in the middle of the floor. So I'm putting these coats on, and this coat just doesn't fit. And it's X size, and I'm like, I can't fit in an X size thing. Maybe I'm fatter than I thought I was. Like, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I need to do something about this. And I've got that little, like, bird in my ear from my friend going like, oh, maybe I should try this slimming club then.
Yeah. Do you think that thought about the coat was already there because your friend had been talking about the slimming club and...
I think so. And there are certain... I don't know about you, but I'm not like this anymore. But at the time, I think there was sort of when you hit X size, there's a bit of your mind goes, no, well, that's proper fat.
Yes, definitely.
Right? That's one step beyond. Like, I can deal with X-1, but I can't deal with X kind of thing. So I think I had in my head, like, oh, this pushes me into a new bracket or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what sent me off, like, down that road. The thing I've realised, actually only relatively recently, H&M, notorious for, like, the worst, like, clothing size. No, not even just small sizing. Like, you can try on 3 of the same and they're all different. Yeah. Like, it's all over the place. So then I thought, like, I started a fucking diet because you can't size your clothes properly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm really mad about that. And it was like 15 years ago.
Oh, bless you.
I think you should be mad about that. I think more of us need to get mad about that, because that's exactly it. UK sizing has absolutely no standard to it whatsoever, which means you're absolutely smart. And H&M is a real culprit for it. I was in there, funnily enough, earlier today. 5 different items, all the same size, absolutely different.
Yeah.
Just no standard to it whatsoever.
I remember when I was younger shopping in Marks and Spencer's on purpose because they had vanity sizing. So you could buy a size smaller than you actually thought you were because there's that number on the label, because their clothes were more generous.
Yeah.
Even when I had lost the weight on the first diet, because first diet's easy, right?
Yeah.
Come back to that. Even when I'd lost the weight on the first one, I remember going into Topshop and I was now a solid Y size everywhere. Went into Topshop, couldn't even get in Y+1.
Oh,
right.
So it's just all over the place.
It's all over the place. And because there's like this cultural view of what an acceptable straight size is, we all fall into this trap of then. And I don't know a single woman who doesn't worry about falling into the next size or having to buy the next size. It's I mean it's a good trick. Well done, clothing diet companies, because it's working.
Exactly.
I mean, even places like For Raven that don't have the numbers, they have the letters for the sizes. I can't get in their biggest size. So you know, and they kind of look at, if you ask for, do you have X+1? No.
Which is another issue, again, which is the lack of inclusivity in sizing, particularly. I mean, I guess it's everywhere, but I know it to be in the UK.
Definitely.
So you led on there a little bit, like, of course, first diet, huge success, everything's great, we're walking on there.
It was a piece of piss, I'm sorry. It was. I went to the club, I followed the little thing that they said that I had to do, and all the funny little rules, and it wasn't even that hard. Like, okay, I was allowed, I think it was like 1 portion of like pasta or potatoes, and it was a particular size or whatever, and I could eat as much meat as I wanted or something like that. And I did. I dropped the weight. But I'm not doing numbers. I dropped the weight. I dropped over the 10% target they tend to set you when you first get there. And a little bit more, and then it sort of maintained for a while. I kind of dieting's so bloody boring. So I got bored of it. Like, genuinely just bored. Like, why do I have to think about food all bloody time? But it maintained for a while. You know, it rattled along. I didn't necessarily gain or lose any more. It just sort of steadied out. And possibly that led to the boredom of like, oh, I'm not getting this sort of, you know, I'm not standing on the scales and going, oh yes, I've lost another little bit. And then eventually you give up. Well, you tell yourself it's because you gave up. And it creeps back up. And it creeps up past the point at which you started.
Of course it does.
And it creeps up a little bit more past that. And then you think, maybe I should do a diet again.
And it drags you in.
Because weirdly, you think it worked last time.
Well, it did.
For like the first 6 months.
Whilst you were paying them your money to go.
I mean, even if you carried on paying your money to go, there would come a point, at some point, where you would inevitably not follow the plan in exactly the same way, or your mind would fight back against the restriction, and you'd start having, I mean, I know a lot of people find that they binge and then restrict and binge and then restrict. So even if you think you're on the diet, you're no longer on the diet. Which is not anyone's fault but
No.
the diet.
Well, yes, exactly.
And as you said, you were thinking the whole time about food.
Oh,
Which
so
is not-
dull.
It's
It's
not
so
like a healthy
dull.
mental state,
No, like
is it?
I like cooking, I like food, I like preparing nice things to eat, but there's this like mental drain that goes with dieting of just like, oh, I have to think about what I'm going to eat, and it needs to fit in this sort of set of rules I've been given by whichever company I'm paying my money to, essentially. And it just gets dull and boring, really boring.
So how many times did you go back to the dreaded slimming world?
So I did it the first time.
Yeah.
I think the second time I did it, I didn't go back. I just sort of said, oh, I'll just redo it. Like I know the rules, I'll just stick to it.
Yeah.
Didn't last very long actually at all the second time. I think in my mind there was something of like, I am accountable to this person who's in some reason got authority on this. So like, if I can prove it to her, anyway. So it didn't last very long the second time. I went back. I then tried a couple more. I stuck to Slimming World the whole time, actually. I had other friends who were doing like Weight Watchers and stuff, but I was kind of like, well, I've already bought the book, so I'll just stick with this one. I went to one, and a patient of mine was there, and I was like, I'm not making this awkward, I'm just going to leave. Because I don't like to upset people. It was an ex-patient long ago, and she'd done really well, but I was just like, let's sort of not make things awkward. Yeah. I found another one. And the first week I was there, somebody it was on the other side of the room, it wasn't at me, it was just, they're doing the little talk around thing, and somebody just made a joke that, oh, don't they wish that they had an eating disorder? And no one challenged it, and I was like, I'm not coming back.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Like, just awful. And I didn't feel like a challenge either. I was on the other side of the room, nobody there knows me, it was my first week, and I was like, I can't do anything. Nobody else did anything. The leader didn't do anything. And I was like, I'm never coming back here.
The awful thing is that they were probably so deep into it that they actually didn't see the harm in what they've just said.
No, none at all. Just this idea of like, if you have an eating disorder, it's easy to lose weight. What the hell? It's so messed up.
It's so messed up, isn't it?
But even then, obviously, I had enough, like, I don't know, I was with it enough to be like, this is really wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm not coming back. And I think that actually might have been the last time I went to Slimming World.
Yeah.
Like, ever. So maybe that was a good thing.
It sounds like it was.
It sounds like it was certainly something that kind of jumped up and slapped you across the face and
for sure.
made you see the toxicity of the Slimming World.
It really did. And then the last time I dieted and was successful, which is
huge quote marks.
was so I'm a CBT therapist, and there is a book by a very well-known CBT therapist about dieting.
Right.
And I was like, well, if it's CBT endorsed, this is better, right?
Yeah.
And I really like this book because it didn't tell you what to eat. It told you how to eat, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is just like a particular diet that's very trendy at the moment and claim not to be a diet.
Oh, yes.
Begins with and
ends in
Yes, them.
Yeah.
Very similar.
Yes. It's a lifestyle. It's not a diet.
It's
not
totally a
psychology.
diet.
Yeah.
So I followed the rules of what this book said, and weirdly, some of it does slightly overlap with intuitive eating. So they get to sort of say, we're not a diet, because we want you to eat mindfully. And like, eating mindfully is a really good thing, actually.
Yeah.
I follow intuitive eating. You do want to eat mindfully. You want to honour your hunger. You want to honour your cues, right?
Yes.
But the way it was done in this book was...
It's the mindful eating diet.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So I stuck with that for a little while and lost a similar amount of weight as I had the first time, I think. Like the very first time. But again, I had to think about food all the time. Yeah. And this was my greatest mistake, was when I did this one, I effectively introduced my husband to dieting.
Oh dear.
So he had all the fun of, diet's diets are really easy.
Oh gosh,
It's
yeah.
the first, because it's his first time.
First time.
Right? We could just do, what's wrong with this? So later on, when he's thinking, oh, maybe we should try again, because we'd put all the weight back on and more, he's saying, well, why don't we just diet again? And I just was like, I can't do this anymore. You don't understand how much my head is full of what we're going to eat when we're on a diet. It's too much effort.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my biggest mistake, was introducing somebody else into the world of diets.
I can honestly say I made similar mistakes. So it's interesting because you said there that you follow intuitive eating, and of course the big difference between intuitive eating and a diet, I don't know how many people know this, but is the fact that it is not weight loss. We put weight loss aside, and it is not a goal at all when following intuitive eating. So how did you move from being so much, and I guess it's connected to that head full and realising, but it's still quite a big leap to get to a point where you'll say, I'm actually going to be confident enough to say I'm not falling into this culture of continuing to diet. That's a very brave thing to do.
I think it had started earlier, like really subtly. So when I got married, or when I was preparing to get married, I said to myself, I'm not going on a diet. And I was just really clear about it from the beginning. I am not going to diet. Whatever size I am, the day I get married, that is the size I'm going to be. And I will buy the dress that fits that. And I'm not going to do that thing of buy a size smaller and diet down into it or any of that stuff. I just said no.
Amazing.
And I was so much happier for it.
Yeah.
And at the time I got married, I was at my heaviest I'd ever been. I'm heavier than that now, but I was at the heaviest I'd ever been. And I did not care, actually. But, again, like once that had passed and life goes on, you think, oh, maybe I should try lose a little bit again. And so I was thinking about it, and then it was in the pandemic. It was in like the first lockdown, actually. I was like, right, I think I need to get back on a diet, or I need to do something. But I was so aware of like how boring I found it, and how I didn't want my whole head to be full of it.
Yeah.
So I found this dietitian. Initially I found one in America or Canada who was sort of saying like, you can be fat and healthy and you don't have to do this. And I tried to contact her, but she never got back to me. And I was like, well, if she exists, there's got to be somebody in the UK that exists. Yeah. So I found a dietitian down in, I think she's in Bournemouth. And I had like the intro call with her, and she was sort of explaining it. And I said, the thing is, I think I still want to lose weight. Like, I can't lie, that is part of this. And she was just straight with me and basically like, that's not what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And like, you need to decide if this is for you. And she sent me some YouTube clips and, some kind of stuff to have a look at. And I thought, this has still got to be better than going on a diet, though.
Yeah. Anything's better than going on a diet.
So I signed up to work with her. Like, she has her own little course of things that she does. So I signed up to work with her. And the science is always the thing that'll get me. Like, I come from that kind of medically type background. So if you can prove it with science, I'll listen, essentially. Yes. And she started fucking proving it.
Yeah.
And 95% of diets don't work long term. Within 5 years, 95% of people gained the weight back and more.
Yeah.
Would you prescribe a drug that had that level of efficacy, or whatever the word is? No, never. You would never treat any other problem like this. And I was like, right, well, that means diets are out. That means I stop.
Yeah.
And I did. And then I still had to battle with, I will never be smaller than I am now.
Absolutely.
And that's what I had to grapple with. And again, weight actually does fluctuate naturally and normally, and
it does.
maybe I will at some point. But I had to grapple with, I will never be smaller than I am now. And that was really hard.
Yeah.
Actually. And I still trip over it occasionally.
Yeah.
Right? You still have that day where you look in the mirror and you're like, yeah, but maybe if I went on a little diet. Maybe if I went on a sensible one.
Yeah.
No. But I know. And I taught myself, it gets quicker to talk yourself down.
Yes. Because as well, like you said as well, you're someone who follows evidence. You with that in your mind, I guess that really helps you to talk yourself down, because there's strong science.
It's just not going to work. Like the full stop, the end. So it's like, well, even if I wanted to, I can't, because it doesn't work. So like, move on, put it aside, let it go.
So where does that place your head now? How do you talk yourself down? How does that happen? What do you say that helps you to feel empowered and confident and not sad about the fact that you won't ever have a smaller body?
So
potentially.
It did start with the science. It had to be like, diets don't work, you're going to be wasting your time, you might end up even fatter, you know?
Absolutely.
And that's not really the nicest thing, because I've moved on from that now. I don't like sort of saying, well, you might be even fatter. Like that will be some kind of punishment.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter what size I am, I'm still a worthwhile person, like, irrespective. So I have moved on from this sort of sciencey way of doing it into my worth is not tied up in anything to do with my appearance.
Yes.
My worth just is inherent. And if you don't like that, you can bog off.
Yes!
Right? So yeah, occasionally I have to remind myself, like, you can do it if you want, but it's not going to work. And it doesn't matter. Like, it's like the least important thing about me.
You sound like you've really unpicked weight stigma, and that you've recognised how it was internalised within you and how you put that back on yourself.
You make it sound like I've done something amazing, and maybe I have, but like I don't feel. You know, when you listen to people say, "Well, I did a lot of work on that," and I kind of go, "No, I didn't," but I kind of actually, that's nice to hear. Thank you, because I think I probably have done a lot of work on that. The other thing that helps is I follow a lot of like fat people, essentially, and fat positive people, fat liberation people. I stay as clear as I can of like body positivity. They're like, well, as long as you're happy in your body, everything's okay. As long as your body happens to be white and thin and cis and not disabled and all of that stuff, like, they can just, again, they can go in the bin.
Yeah.
So I just started following people who look like me, essentially, and bigger. Because again, it reminds me, like, well, I like these people. These people are worthwhile people, and it's got nothing to do with what they look like.
Yeah.
So
and
that's
as much
the other
as
thing.
diet culture would have us believe that there are no people who aren't white, cis, straight size, so on and so forth, actually, there's a hell of a lot of us around.
More of us than fit the description of what we're meant to look like.
Exactly.
Which is the saddest thing. I think I read something the other day, and I don't know how accurate it is, but something like 1%, perhaps even less of the population, actually, in the UK, actually fits that descriptor that we see from diet culture.
That's
incredible. It's crazy that then everybody else in society is at some point in their life trying to fit that in inverted commas ideal.
Yeah. And I know people who are very naturally on the, I think some of them would even call themselves thin. I know that's not a word a lot of straight size people will use about themselves, but I know people who are just incredibly slim. And you know what? If you ask them how they eat intuitively.
Yes.
They've never been on a diet.
Yeah.
And they just eat what they want.
Yeah. I've found exactly the same thing. Yeah, that's it. It's diets that are ruining our health, and yet it's diets we are prescribed for our health. And until we change that and start listening to real experiences like yours, I think we're going to carry on down a tunnel we don't want to go down. So thank you so much for speaking to us today, because I think you have done a lot of work on it. I think you have confronted something that would have been very difficult, actually. Because like you said, right from a young age, you breathed diet culture. It was always there. To step outside of that, I often say, like, to step outside the matrix and see it, because that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
So
the thing I often think about it is, like, you know, like how salmon have to swim upstream? That's how I picture it. It's like you've got to swim the wrong way, because everybody's going the other way.
Yes.
Like, everybody's feeding the message of, like, this is the way you're meant to go. This is the thing you have to do to be healthy or be attractive or whatever. and I've got to be like a little salmon going the other way, going like, no.
Brilliant analogy. I love that.
Excellent.
Yeah, but it's hard because you're swimming against people.
You are,
you know?
yeah.
But every time we get a chance, we're going to grab another little fish and we're going to take it with
Turn
us.
it around.
And before you know it, the whole shoal will be going in our direction, and it'll be all good.
Oh, I went through like a ranty phase. Like I do this with anything when I learn something. I'm like, let me tell you all of my knowledge about this new thing. So I went through a bit of a ranty phase. I remember ranting at my sister once because she just started a diet. No, don't do it. You know, about that. I have stepped back from that and like what other people want to do with their bodies is theirs. Like
Exactly.
I'm 100% about consent on my own body, which means that I have to be about that on yours. So if you want to do that, fine, rock on, off you go. And I try now not to get into that, like, you will believe what I believe, because people are allowed to believe what they like.
Absolutely. I think it's really important to acknowledge that bit you just said in there, which is about body autonomy. Yeah. We all have body autonomy, and that has to go both ways.
Yeah.
We need more people to send it this way. It's perfectly acceptable to go on a diet and shrink your body.
Yeah.
It's still not acceptable to say, I love and accept my body because I am not my body. Yeah. I am so much more than that. Yeah. And then even take that step further and say, can you just look at this science here that emerged, that you ignored, that says, and you can be healthy too. So, shh. But
absolutely.
You are on Instagram. Tell us your Instagram if people want to find you.
So my Instagram is greendoor_therapy on Instagram. My website is www.greendoortherapy.co.uk. So that's where I am. I don't actually talk much about this because it's like a personal subject on my Instagram. Obviously I put on that I was coming on to speak to you lovely ladies. So I've dabbled with the idea of kind of incorporating it into my therapy. I have a lot of ladies that like come to therapy who it comes up somewhere, where we're talking about it, whether it's their relationship with their body or their relationship with exercise and things like that. So it's there, even when they're coming for something else. It's so insidious.
Yeah. And I think it's important as well that people know that they can come to you and you are Hazel-aligned, because as someone who is talking to people about this stuff, you are going to understand it and recognise it, and that feels like a safe person to be with. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of therapists who are very safe to be with too, but I know that there's a lot of people who have referred perhaps to other medical practitioners in some way and they haven't quite had the same response. So I think it's wonderful that people can know that you understand health at every size and you take that approach with things yourself as well.
Brilliant, yeah. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I think it's something that a lot of our listeners can relate to. It certainly hit a very personal note with me, so thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been really nice.
Yay. And we have to do this. @SparkLife_UK.
We are
on Instagram. And we're also www.sparklifeuk.com.
That is us
on the internet.
Yes.
And we will see you for another episode next time.
Soon. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thanks. Bye. Yay, that was awesome.